Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to have a look at the FS17 flieglPFS16000 mod. I don't generally get involved with too many mods themselves, I just play around with maps and stuff like that, but a couple of people have asked me to have a look at this and explain it from when I did my testing carrots video, so I thought, well, why not, we'll just have a bit of a play around, see what we can come up with. So we've got the actual mod here. I'll open this up so you can see what it looks like in Giant's editor. And yeah, basically it's a pallet creation machine. You can put it on your field or wherever you want to put it, and then you add in whatever product, potatoes, sugar beets, I think it does straw, grass, or various different things. If I can have a look, I can't see it in the XML, but I'll show you that later on. You just basically put your product in the top or pick it up from underneath. There is actually a pick up from underneath, so if you have a pile on the ground, you can just park this by it and it will then pick it up. And then we have a pallet spawn out the back here, and there's a rammer, so you can set it all up and then it will create a pallet. Once it's full up, you can push the rammer out, it will push that pallet out to the side, and then when the rammer goes back in, it will start a new one. Now this is version 1.5, I believe, which has a automatic hired worker setup. So once you get it all up and running, you click the hired worker and then you can just leave it to do whatever it needs to do once it's full up with a product, and it will then automatically push the rammer out, pull it back in, create a new pallet and continue on. So you don't have to keep watching it and stand by it, you know, each time the pallet is full up and whatever else. You don't have to do that manually. You can actually hire a worker, which is really nice. So I quite like that function as well. And there's also a little panel that opens up here, which is why there's a camera, and your character will stand here and emulate that he's actually, or she is, pushing the buttons and making it all work. So really well made mod, quite like it. So what I want to do here is actually add a couple of things. Well, I'm going to add one thing. I'm not going to get into too much. As I say, it's not really my thing to do these types of mods, play around with these types of mods. Not on video anyway. I tend to just do it for myself, just to experiment with stuff, but it's not really my area. I tend to really be into maps more than anything else. But as I say, a couple of people have asked, so I figured, you know, we'll have a play around, see what we can do. Okay, so there's the actual mod itself. Then what we have is some objects, and these are the objects that are going to be spawned onto the actual map from that particular pallet creation machine. So we have our big bag fertilizer, big bag food, seeds, soybeans, biogas, compost, manure bales, milk pallets, potatoes, silage bales, and wood chip pallet. So if I actually open up one of the pallets here, let's have a look at the potato pallet. There is a couple of different versions that he's added in here, and you can decide which one you want by changing the link in the XML. I'm going to probably go with this one over the other one. I quite like this one. If I show you the other one, that's this is the one I'm going to be working with. So you actually have a proper sort of wooden pallet box, I would probably say, it more so than a pallet. Or you have the other version, which is more like a pallet, which is this one. And then you just have like the simple pallet with the bagged potatoes on it, like so. Very good. Again, you can choose whichever one you want to go with when we create our new ones for what I'm going to be working with today, which is carrots. So I've taken a map, I've put it already in my mods folder, we'll get to that a bit later on, which has carrots on it, plus a few other different bits and pieces. So obviously you will need to have a map or edit a map, or if you're making a map, you'll need a map that has carrots on it if you're going to be working with carrots. If you're going to be working with something else, then obviously that map would need to support it. You can't just make this or edit this particular mod, stick it into a map that doesn't have, say, carrots on it, because it won't magically create them for you. It's just once you've harvested them, you can then, if you don't want to, just take those carrots and sell them or give them to your animals or whatever else you choose to do and set them up in that particular way. You can then use this particular product, turn them into pallets for easy storage, which I really like. Some of the things within Farming Simulator 17, the tip collisions and things like that in barns and sheds, I don't think they work very well. It's just my opinion. Even though, you know, you can try and set them up your best you can, you still do get some bleed through. So when you actually push your product up against the wall, it tends to come through the other side, and it makes it really awkward to get it back out again. For me, that's really annoying and I don't like it. So I use a farm silo where I can, and I'll edit the farm silo to take products that probably in real life wouldn't be put into a farm silo, at least not the way that it works within the game. So this is an alternative version or an alternative way to work around that. You can then harvest your crop, put it into a pallet form, and then store it in a shed, and you've got no possibility of it bleeding through walls and things like that. And then you can come back and get it whenever you want at a later date, or you can sell it off straight away. I think this is a really good way of getting over that potential glitch within FS17. Again, that's just my opinion. But so yeah, what we're going to do hopefully here is take some bits and pieces and then make some edits and whatever else to give us our carrots. So we need to choose the palette we're going to work with. Again, I'm going to be working with this particular potato pallet 3. Now I'll just show you the XML here very quickly. So if I open up the XML, we come down to our field types here, and you can see we've got all our different field types: potato, sugar beet, milk, so on and so on and so on. So what we'll need to do here is obviously add in our carrot. So we'll just put that in like so. Now again, this must be spelt the way that it's spelt within your mod desk for the actual registered fruit type on the map. So if somebody was to register carrot, potentially if they were of a different language other than English, they may spell it with a K, they may spell it completely different. So you need to make sure that it matches whatever it's been registered as within the moddesk.xml for the particular map you're going to be working with. Otherwise it will not work. It won't know what it's looking for. So just double check that. We may have a look at that later on. I'm just not sure yet. We'll see how we go on. So once we've added that into there, we also need to come down to the part where it spawns the actual pallet and what it's going to be looking for. And this is where it comes into this particular part here. So this is the field type and the actual object that's going to be spawned onto the map from this particular machinery. So you can see here we've got all our different potato pallets and so on. So like I said before, if you wanted to, it does give you the choice of 2 in the objects folder here for your potatoes. So if you didn't particularly like, if I can find it again, if you didn't particularly like one or the other, so if you preferred this one over the other one, perhaps maybe, then you could change that path file name there so it doesn't say potato pallet 2, change it to potato pallet 3, and that's the one that would then be spawned onto the map. Okay, so I won't make the changes. I'll come back to this. I just wanted to show you very quickly in the mod desk. So that's how we set all that up, and then I'm pretty sure that's all we need to set up, but we'll go through this a bit later on when we get to it. So no, I'm not going to make any changes just there at the moment. So the first thing we need to do here is actually have a look at the potato pallet itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in Giant Sensor again. And then what we need to do, we're going to use this same palette. So what we don't want to do is have over sort of complicate things, because what you can end up with is, if I was to export this, so what I need to do here is obviously export this so I have the palette i3D. But if I was to export this, so if I go File and then Export with Selection, or Export Selection with Files, it will export it with everything. It will come out with all of the textures and everything else for this particular palette. But I don't want to do that, because then I'm going to be doubling up on the textures, because they're already in the actual mod itself. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is actually have this, the i3D, which we will then edit in Notepad++ to give us what we need, but we just want to have the actual base i3D with not much more in it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to highlight the actual palette itself in the Cinegraph here. I'm going to go File, and then instead of Export Selection with Files, I'm going to go Export Selection. We need to make sure we're actually in the right folder first. So if we come to the desktop here, we have the folder. So we'll go into there, then into Objects. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to just type in carrot palette. I always put the capital P on there, or when I put an actual phrase in here, I tend to have the first part of it in lowercase, then put a capital to the second, so it matches what you've got here. It's just, you can put it really whatever you want, spell it however you want on this side of things. It's the field types where we get to in this section here that really matter. You can call this fluffy bunny if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend you do that, but you know, it's up to you. But just so you know what it's going to be looking at, then tend to name it something that represents what you're going to be working with. So we have carrot palette, so we'll go save. And then what I can do is I can actually close this down because I don't need that anymore. So we go back into the folder and we'll look for our carrot palette i3D, which we've just created. And we're going to right click, edit with Notepad++. And obviously you can see here, we've got all of our parts in here for the actual palette itself, but it's saying potato bag diffuse, potato bag normal. We don't want potatoes, we want carrots. So we need to find those. Well, how do we do that? Well, what I have done is, in the past, is I will drag this across my other monitor here. Just look up on Google or wherever your search, you know, whatever search engine you tend to use, just type in carrot bags and we'll go into images, and what we're looking for here is an image that will represent something that looks like, no, not shopping, images, Muppet. We want something that looks like carrot bags, and we have an image right here. Perhaps this one might be better. You need to play around with these and just get the one that's going to work with for you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on that one, and again you've got loads of different ones. There's quite a few different images that you can possibly take. I'm going to go with this one, so I'm going to right click, I'm going to go save image, we'll save it out to the desktop, we'll close that down. So then what I need to do is obviously change that into a DDS. I need to then create a normal. We may be able to work with the potato normal. Again, normal is not really something that tends to be quite relevant. It's just, you know, the way the textures work within the actual game itself. As long as they're close, then, you know, you should be fine. So what I want to do here is I want to obviously have a look at the potato palette again, because what I need to do is obviously find what images it uses. I'll probably guess it's going to use this one here, but just want to make sure. So again, we'll right click, open this in Notepad++, potato bag diffuse, potato bag normal. So it is those ones. So I'm going to use my WTV program just to find out what these are saved in. This is very handy, and you know, it will save you a lot of messing around trying to figure out what they are, what format they're going to be saved in, and all the rest of it. So we have, and you can see here, this is the actual picture. It doesn't look really much different to what I've got on this one. So you can see it's quite easy to actually create these types of things just by taking pictures from YouTube, not YouTube, Google, and then downloading them and then changing them into something that's going to work for you on your map or in the mod itself. Okay, so we want a DXT1 512 by 512, and it's got a mipmap. Now the mipmap, that's automatically generated by paint.net, so you know, irregardless to what that number says, as long as it's higher than 1.1, then you, or sorry, 1/1, you know it's got mipmap. If it's 1/1, then it will be no mipmap. So I need to right click, and then I'm going to go open with paint.net. So we need to change this format, the size of it first. So we're going to go image, resize. We're going to go 512 by 512. Click OK. And then I need to save this as a DDS. So I'm going to go File, Save As, DDS, Save. And we want it to be a DXT1 with mipmap, because that's what matches the potato bag that's already in use. We know this works, so we're going to match what it says there, DXT1 with mipmap. Okay, and we can then close that down. So what I need to do now is take the take this one, and I need to change that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it something similar to what we've got here. So we'll just go carrot bag underscore, oops, diffuse, like so. And then we can cut that, Control X, come back into the mod, Control V, paste it in. Excellent. So don't need that anymore, so get rid of that. So now I can go to my carrot palette, we'll right click, open this in Notepad++ again, and then all I'm going to do there is just edit that one, just to diffuse. I'm going to leave the normal as it is, and we're going to edit this to carrot. Okay, so what we can do now is we can come through. I would probably leave all this alone. There's no real reason to change all this. If you wanted to, you could come through and where it says potato bag, you can change all of those to carrot bag if you want to. I'm going to leave it as it is, not really bothered about that too much. The name itself we will need to change, so we're going to change that at the top here. So it's got pallet, we need to change that to carrot, like so. And then if we come down, we've got carrot pallet there, so we need to come down to our fill types down the bottom here, and we need to change this one to carrot, so it knows that obviously that's the fill type we're putting in, so that's what it's going to accept and that's what's going to give us the particular pallet. So we've got all of that. As I say, if you want to, you can come into here and change all of these from potato bag 2 to carrot bag, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just going to leave that as it is. So we'll go save, close that down. So if we open this up in Giant Editor, and I would always recommend you do this before you start getting into game or whatever else. And then what we've got here, we've got our fillable pallet. If we click on that, you can see our fill type is carrot because we changed that in the i3D and Notepad++. Now obviously the parts in here are going to be a little bit different because it's going to say potato bag, but if you wanted to, you could change that. But to be honest with you, it's the actual what it looks like and the fill type that's important. So we can see we do have carrots in those particular bags. Sorry about my Giant Editor. Let's turn the speed down a little bit, that might make it a little bit smoother. There we go. So we can see we've got carrots. Now it doesn't look brilliant by any means, so again, you know, you may need to find a slightly different picture that's going to work better for you, but you know, as long as it sort of looks somewhat, you know, representing the actual whatever you've got in there, I would go with it. Again, you know, that's going to be on you to have a play around with and get what's going to be working for you. So we've got what we need in there. So, and then most importantly, if we come down to the console, down the bottom here, if this isn't open, go window and then go into console and you'll get this up. And what you're looking for in here is any errors, warnings, things like that. There are none, so fantastic. So we can close that down. We'll save it, it's fine. So we've got what we need in there. So what I need to do now then, don't need that anymore, so we can close that down. So what I can do now is I can go back into my XML. So if we open up the XML again here, what we're looking for here really is just to cover all our bases and look for any fill types and things like that we may need to change and add in. So if we come on down, we've got all our parts here, there's nothing there we need to change. All looks pretty good there, so we'll come back down, and as I said before earlier on the video, we need to change our fill type here or add in a fill type. So we'll put in there carrot like so. We can come on down a little bit further, nothing in there. So what we're looking for here then is what we want to add in. So we've got all our standard fruit types which come with every map for FS17. Obviously it shows milk, seeds, fertilizer, but these are things that are on the map. It's just, you know, ways of actually adding it in to a particular pallet other than put it in a trailer or whatever else. Then we've got our bales, then we've got our extras. Doesn't really matter where you put it wherever you want within this particular section. I'm going to add it in at the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight one of the lines. I'm going to go Control-C to copy it. I'm going to create a new line, and then I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to change the biogas to carrot because that's my fill type, so it recognises that. Then what I need to do is point it obviously in the right place. So if we come back into our objects and we had carrot palette, so if I take that name there, we'll copy that, come back over, and I can then paste that in to there like so. So we've got carrot palette.i3d. That's the i3d, that's the actual palette that's going to be spawned onto the map, hopefully, if this works, once we put our carrots in. So we'll just double check there's nothing else further we need to add in here. I don't think there is, but we'll just go through it. So we're going to come on through a bit further, just see what else is in here. No, we're all good. So we're going to go ahead and save, and then we'll close all that down. Perfect. There's nothing else we need to really mess around with in there. We've had a look, and the actual carrot pallet looks good within Giant Senator, so it should display the same on the actual map once we're in game. So I don't think there's anything really further we need to add in there. There's nothing in the mod desk that we need to really play around with. We've got, this is just your standard sort of mod desk for the mod itself. Again, I don't tend to mess around with these sorts of things too much, so just a little bit editing here and there, but for the most part, it's way beyond my skills, so I don't tend to mess around too much. But as far as I know, there's nothing really we need to mess around with in the actual mod desk.xml, so we're going to shut that down. So what I'll do is I'll get this all zipped up and I'll put it into the actual map itself, and then I'll get some carrots up together and then we'll test it out and we'll see if it works. So actually what I'll do before I do that, let's close that down. I will actually just show you if I go into here, the actual map that I'm going to be using here is version 4 Val Farmer. It's got quite a lot of different things on it. You will need some extra parts when you download the map. If I can find a link for it, I've had the map for a little while now. If I can find a link, I'll put a link in the description for it, but it's got some various bits and pieces you'll need to actually harvest the additional fruit types that are on the map. Quite a good map. We'll get into that when we get into game and I'll show you all that, so, or as much as you need to see for this particular video anyway. So there's the actual map that I'm going to be using. So I'll get this, get the Fleagle pallet creator all zipped up, we'll put it into the mods folder, then we'll get into game, get some carrots up together, and yeah, we'll go from there. So I'll see you in a little bit once we get into game. Okay, so we are now in game, and I collected up some carrots into the Homer Exact, and I bought the actual Fleagle PFS16000, and as you can see, we've now got carrots in the actual unit itself. Awesome. So if you've not used this particular piece of machinery before, it cannot be connected up to a tractor. The tractor is only there to get it into wherever you want it to get to, and then you must disconnect the tractor for this to actually do its thing, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I also would recommend you do it on a flat surface, or as flat as possible. If you have it on a surface that might be, perhaps maybe uneven, or like if it raises up like you can see in the field here, when the pallets actually come out, they do tend to, I don't know what the word is, fling across the map maybe, I don't know, not a word but a phrase. Yeah, they will get a little bit excitable, perhaps that's a word, I don't know. Yeah, they will get a little bit excitable and then they will start bouncing around doing all sorts of weird things. So I would recommend that you put it on a flattish surface to actually get the unit to do its thing. Okay, so I bring up the F1 menu here, we'll come to the machine, and again it is important you place it in the right direction because you won't be able to get to the little panel here, and if you working with Farm Sim, you can actually get into the vehicle pretty much wherever you want to be. So if you have the whatever you've got, your carrots, if you're collecting them in a trailer and then tipping them on the floor or whatever else, make sure you're on the right side of the vehicle or right side of the actual Fleagle unit here, because when you do enter, obviously your character will then jump into the side panel here, and if we go in first person, you can see the really well detailed monitor here, the actual unit. So if you have it too close, you're going to get squished between the two vehicles, so we don't want that. So now that we're actually in here, we'll bring up the F1 menu again, and it says press enter to start the engine, so that's what we'll do. Now one other thing I would say is in the menu, if I go into the actual menu here, you have your automatic engine start. By default that will be on, I believe. Might be different if you're playing on hard, I can't remember, but if you're whatever mode you're playing on, if this is turned to off, then that's where you need it to be, because when you exit the vehicle it will stay running. If I change that menu to on, as soon as I exit the vehicle it will stop running, and you want it to be running all the time so that you can then walk away from it and use the hide function to then have the machine just carry on, do its own thing. I don't know if the actual hide function will keep it running for you. It's possible, but I always tend to keep this off so that when you actually get it up and running, you can then exit the vehicle, and it will stay running. So you can walk away from it and just, it will do its thing with it. You don't have to be like right on top of it all the time. You don't have to keep an eye on it, you can just let it do its thing. Okay, so now that we've got it up and running, we'll enter the unit itself, bring up the F1 menu again, and it then says, let's see, what does it say? Press B to turn on flieglPFS16000. So we'll press B, and that will then turn it on. You can't see the belt underneath, but the belt, you can see if I click through it, you can actually see it is running, doing its thing. So now if the pallet is all set up correctly, when I actually enable the pallet, so I will press I, and there we go, we get a pallet. Now I've got game extension in, so that's why I brought up that other menu. But we can see the actual pallets, all this pallet is spawned in, and the carrots are now actually being put into their bags within the pallet itself. Really, really great. And if you have the unit parked by the side like I have here, as they go down it will continually then fill them up. So fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump out of that a second, because I also want to show you another function. So I'm going to put the pipe in, and yes, that is a thing. I don't know why it does that, but it does, so just have to go with it. So what I want to do here is I'm just going to move this out of the way, because I want to show you the way that this will actually pick it up off the ground as well. So if I just jump back out of that again, so we'll just see how we're getting on here. So once you actually have a pallet completely filled up, whatever the word is, you can then press the X button to push the pallet out of the way. So we'll press X, the beacon comes on, and it pushes the pallet excuse me, out from the unit. Fantastic. So we press X again, it pulls the the pallet pusher back in again, and another pallet will then spawn in. Magic. So you can continue to do this, obviously, you know, as long as you want. You can walk away from the machine and it will continue to fill up the pallet again with the menu set to automatic engine off, or engine start off. I believe that's the best way to do it, because it will just, you know, keep the engine running and everything else will just keep doing its thing, whatever. So we'll continue to do that as it is. And what I'll do is I'm just going to get this thing emptied out if I can. So you can tell that the actual pallet is full up because the rotor at the top there stops. So that's one way of doing it. So if I come back into here again, what I will do is I'll press I to turn off the pallet spawning, because we don't want that, the actual pallet creation thingy. We want to turn that off for the moment. So I'm going to press X again, put the rammer out so it gets rid of that one. Excellent, we'll bring that back in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to press B to turn it off, like so. And you can see we've got 13,742 in there. So now if I actually put the pipe back out again, and we'll come back over here like so. Don't want to get too close because obviously it will create a big pile underneath the unit. So I'm going to go Control I to put some carrots out onto the floor here. Again, I don't want too many, just enough to demonstrate this. So we'll press I again to stop that. Put the pipe back in, and we'll pull forward out the way. There we go, fine. So we turn that off, jump out. Okay, so we've now got some carrots on the floor here. And you can see again we've got 13,742 in there. So now if I come back over and I'll try and swing around so you can actually see this. So if you watch the counter there, we'll see this go up hopefully. So now if I press B to turn it back on, there we go. It's now actually picking the carrots up off of the floor and then filling up the unit. So you can do this a couple of different ways. And obviously this isn't the best option because, you know, or you may need to actually move the unit around a little bit, because now if you try and spawn the pallet in, obviously the pallet's going to be a little bit freaky because it's going to be underneath the unit, which is now not really pointing in the right direction while it's up in the air a little bit. So, whoops, what I'll try and do here, if I can actually drive, if it will let me connect. It might not. It might be too high up in the air. Oh, it will do. There we go. So if I connect to this a little bit, we'll just move this out of the way a little bit, just so it spawns a pallet correctly again. There we go. Again, I would recommend you keep it on a flattish surface, because it's, you know, farm sim physics. But I just want to show you, we'll actually pick them up off the ground. So again, you know, might be an idea to create your heap first on the ground, then drive this up to it, so that you're not having the same scenario as I just did there, where it actually goes up underneath the unit so much. Just have it by the side. The actual trigger is quite large underneath this unit if you look at it in GE, so you can actually have the pile a considerable distance away and it will still pick it up. Or you may need to move it around a little bit to get the last few, whatever it is you're picking up, but you know, other than that, it's quite a large trigger. Okay, so we'll enter this again, and if we bring up the F1 menu again, now if I actually turn it back on, so press B, and if I then go H, which is the enable automatic pallet pusher, so if I press H, and if I then go I to enable the pallet creation, again forgive the game extension doodah thingy there, so if I then come out and we watch this, we will see that the actual pallet fills up, and I don't have to do anything here now. I can go off and do something else completely. And again, if you have your machinery next to the unit so it continually fills it up, or you have your pile or whatever else next to the unit so it picks it up off the ground, you can use that hired function, that hired worker function, so when the pallet actually gets full up, it will automatically, as we will hopefully see shortly, push the pallet out for you. So you don't need to be anywhere near the vehicle for this to just do its thing. Now obviously once you get to a point and you have a certain amount of pallets being pushed out, so you need to have a fair amount of room around this vehicle to get this function to work properly, because obviously if there's something in the way and it keeps pushing the pallets out, it will then hit a collision and then cause havoc. But otherwise you could just, you know, walk off, do whatever else you want on the farm without having to continually monitor it, and then come back. Now, as I was about to say, there is a certain point that the pallet pusher will get to, and it will then stop. It won't push any more pallets because it can only push so much weight. So once you get X amount of pallets being pushed out, the pallet pusher ram thing there will then cease to function. So what you'll need to do is come over, pick up some of the pallets, pick up some of the pallets off the floor here, load them up onto a trailer, or at least move them out of the way so that the unit can continue to work properly. But other than that, there, you know, success. We've added pallets to the we've added carrots as a fill type to the unit itself, and we've added in the textures and everything else that we need to create our own carrot pallet. And I don't think it looks too bad, you know. Again, it's not the greatest, but like I said earlier on, but it represents something that looks similar to carrots. You can clearly see, you know, they do look like carrots to a degree. Again, it's going to be on you to find a picture or whatever else. If you want to create your own, go for it, you know. But for me, just do a Google search, get an image, tweak it if you need to, whatever, and then go from there. You know, create your palette like I showed you earlier on in the video, add your texture in, make sure you change the format to whatever it needs to be. I believe in this case it was DXT1 with bitmap, and then make sure it's the right size, so we had 512 by 512. Save it as a DDS and all the rest of it, and then edit your palette within Notepad++ to change it to the correct texture that you created, and there we go, fantastic, all working. So I think we're done here. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.